Though there have been a large number of tradesmen unemployed throughout the Hunter, the Metal Trades Industry Association said it's had difficulty filling its trade vacancies. The pilot programme aims to address this imbalance. Today's launch of the 5-week welding course marks a new opportunity for 12 unemployed fitters, and they're optimistic about new job possibilities.
The future is heading to more skills you've got, the more your salary increases.
For some, it's a refresher course. For others, an upgrading of their skills.
A broader base of skills and a more competitiveness in the job market.
It's a totally different area, like welding. That's not normally covered by the fitting and that to this extent.
So before you were
Newcastle is once again to host the state titles, this time in 1991. Only twice before has the Open titles been held outside the metropolitan area, in Gosford during the 70s and in Newcastle in 1987. On that occasion, the carnival was considered a resounding success, and the hard-working Newcastle committee has been rewarded for its endeavours by snaring the 91 event. On a more current note, this weekend's matches in A grade, the final four should be decided, with the match of the round being the battle between Cricketers' Arms and the Delaney Rollers.
Up to now, the Life Education Centre has been available as an education and referral facility teaching children of the dangers of drug abuse. But now the centre will be available to provide emergency relief, welfare and crisis counselling for families 5 days a week. The addition is housed in a new cottage-style building in the grounds of the Hunter Life Education Complex in Renfrew Crescent at Edgeworth. Opening the new facility today, the chairman of the Federal Social Security Review Committee and lecturer in social work at Sydney University, Professor Bettina Cass, said she's impressed with the amount of community interest in welfare services in the Hunter. She said this did not reflect badly on the area, but showed we realise the importance of providing facilities to prevent family poverty and stress.
Even if we reached a situation in which we had zero unemployment, a situation which I'd certainly like to see us have, we would still require that sort of community welfare presence that provides people with a source of community activity. And although at the moment what you're looking at here are welfare services, I know that the community is concerned with prevention, and that will always be required.
The new centre has the potential to handle 24 clients a day for 5 days each week, and as well as offering referral advice, has the facility for direct handouts to the especially needy. Artists from 4 states are represented in this invitation-only competition. The 25 were selected because they are all emerging but not very established artists, and they also must be Australians. There are 20 paintings and 10 drawings in 2 different sections, with the type of work very closely defined to create a unified, cohesive exhibition. A $5,000 prize for the best painting by an emerging contemporary Australian artist comes from Charlestown Square, and the $1,000 prize for the best drawing from the council. They are all largely figurative works with a metaphysical overtone, enabling the Lake Macquarie Gallery to choose exactly the type of work it wanted. The judge is the curator of contemporary art at the Gallery of New South Wales, Tony Bond.
The work's been selected to make a reasonable exhibition to begin with. An exhibition that would be perfectly sensible to put on for its own sake. And then work has been chosen from it. And it's possible to select people from this exhibition who are leading young artists in Australia today. So I think you are getting the best of both worlds.
The winners of the art prizes will be announced at the official opening of the exhibition in the gallery tonight.
Am I supposed
The Knights opened with the determination of a finals contender, with the forwards willing workers started to find holes in the Penrith defence. And it was hooker Scott Carter who crossed to give the home side first blood.
Once again, they go the short blind. See a little bit of a gap. Jeff Doyle now. Jeff Doyle gets it back to Carter. Carter goes all the way. Carter's in. Carter has scored the opening try for the Newcastle Knights.
But with the Knights' aggression came the errors and a costing mistake by fullback Gary Worth as he tried to force the pass to Tony Kemp that paved the way for a Panthers try to squeeze to Alan McIndoe.
Vandervoort comes off the scrum, gives it to Alexander. Alexander out to the best finisher in the business, Alan McIndoe. And McIndoe will score for the Panthers.
And the second Panther try also came from an error by Worth, who kicked out on the full. And from the restart, clever thinking by Alexander and Izzard gave the Penrith side a 10-4 half-time lead. Bustling play by front rower Mark Sargent, who was on the end of excellent work by Jeff Doyle, levelled the scores at 10-all.
The Knights only have to switch it. They do so this time. Doyle gets the loop over to Mark Sargent. Mark Sargent's going to score, and he does so.
And then Alexander put the Panthers back in front with a simple try set up by centre Cole Bentley, who busted some feeble Knights defence.
Alexander right under the post, and that's Penrith at their very best.
That man, Neil Baker, made it 7 the difference with the easiest of field goals, but the Knights weren't done as it was Steve Walters who scored.
Changes play to Jeff Doyle. Jeff Doyle to the line. Can he get it over to Stevie Walters? Stevie Walters scores! Oh yes, great Newcastle try!
Jeff Doyle could have won the game for the Newcastle Knights by adding the conversion, but it went across the face of goal, and Penrith were home 17-16.
Patrons have witnessed a great game of football between the Penrith.
The RSPCA first received calls about this small herd of cattle on a property at Wakefield several weeks ago. When those were followed up by more from concerned passers-by, local Inspector John Carter decided it was time to act. He arrived to find the cattle just as the callers had described them, grossly underweight in a paddock bare of any fodder.
They're yours, are they?
Yeah, mine and the son's.
Well, you better come across with me and have a look at them. There's one or two not in the best. We've had several reports on them.
We're feeding them.
We're
feeding them.
Yeah, you might be feeding them, but apparently one or two there with calves are not getting enough. That's the problem.
Part of the RSPCA's plan is to alert the owners to the problem and hopefully encourage them to rectify the situation before it reaches tragic proportions and prosecutions are necessary. For Wakefield farmer Arthur Field, that meant a good stern warning.
This is only Monday. You're going to have one bale go through till Thursday?
Yeah, we'll get another one tomorrow.
Well, you've got to keep a good number around because I'll be out in another couple of weeks' time, and if those cattle haven't improved, you'll be prosecuted under the Cruel Animals Act.
It was a turn of events Mr. Field admitted he never expected.
Were you aware that other people were getting worried about the cattle?
No.
Has it been a bit of a shock to have the RSPCA turn up today?
Yeah. I've never had me before.
You don't think you'll ever have them back again? You'll be rectifying the problem?
No, I'll give them a bit more now.
These cattle were some of the lucky ones. For them, the RSPCA did arrive in time. But the story hasn't always had a happy ending across the Lower Hunter in recent weeks. For some starving and neglected stock, the help came just a little too late. These pictures pay testimony to the neglect occurring throughout the region in recent months. Taken on properties recently at Colburn and Hinton, many of these cows were too weak to even stand. They were destroyed on the spot.
Some were atrocious. There's only one word for it. There's no excuse for most of it. I know they all try to tell you it's the cost of feed and it's the cost of this and it's very expensive, but really in speaking, it's the one word, management of properties.
What was to be a 2-day sale in Newcastle has now been extended to 3. The 23,000 bales expected to go up for auction have increased to a record 42,000 in the city's first sale for the season. Long periods of rain have produced extra feed for the sheep, resulting in more wool of a broader quality. But nationwide, exports have dropped. High interest and exchange rates are partly to blame. Jim Steadman, chairman of the Northern Division of the Australian Council of Wool Exporters, explains.
The industry is at a bit of a stalemate at the moment. Our overseas customers have got plenty of stock. The continent's on holidays. Russia is short of hard currency. China is restructuring their industry. And so when you have all those things coming onto a market which is very, there's a lot of wool here right now, and the season is looking good. Weights are up, so there's big quantities of wool on the market, and unfortunately the corporation has got to step in and hold the market at a reserve price.
He says the Wool Corporation has bought up between 50 and 60% of the wool, which will add up to around 1 million bales by Christmas. This could have a damning effect on any price rises during the year. And this drop in exports must be a worry to the government, says Michael Hogg, wool manager for Farmers Grascos.
Because last year wool was our greatest export earner, it was around about the $5 billion. And at this time of this year, our balance of trade figures aren't real good, as we all know. Our imports are beating our exports, and because at the moment the clip is down around about the price of the clip is down around about 30 to 40% on this time last year. So I think the government would be worried about this.
Land degradation, or the decline of quality of land due to misuse or overuse, is, according to Ian Armstrong, the greatest threat to Australian agriculture.
Everything that we do relates to the land, be it the food we eat, the clothes that we wear, or indeed the air we breathe. It all comes back to the land. And so that is our number one asset, and it must be our total objective to preserve that at nearly any cost to maintain our way of life.
The Minister said soil erosion, soil acidity and salinity and pollution is costing the state $40 million each year. Some Merriwa farmers decided to address the problem locally by setting up Landcare. Landowners work in conjunction with government groups. Through soil erosion, some Merriwa farms are losing 160 tonnes of topsoil per hectare each year. On average, farmers' hip pockets are being eroded too, to the tune of $3,500 per year. Despite these figures from the Soil Conservation Service, some farmers still fail to act on the issue.
There's still a few that don't see it as a great problem, and they're the ones we're trying to get to try to get a message across to them that they should be looking at what their land's doing and how they're using their land.
Government funding has been increased, with Canberra putting up $50 million and the state government $32 million per year to protect Australian soils. According to Agriculture Minister Ian Causley, fertile farming land such as this is a legacy Australians simply cannot afford to abuse. The Minister says agriculture represents something like 40% of the nation's trading export, and if something isn't done to stop land degradation, he says Australia will be in the poorhouse.
Unless we arrest the degradation of our soils, we're going to see it accelerate, and that means it will affect our quality of life, it will affect our productive capacity, and it will affect the future prosperity of our heirs and successors.
The educational plan for infants, primary and secondary school pupils took only 6 months to evolve. Today the comprehensive kits were running hot off the presses in time for the official launch this evening by education officials and Lake Macquarie Mayor Ivan Welsh.
It's a new project, and it's one which we believe will become the forerunner of many more like it around the state.
It's hoped teachers will include the syllabus as part of commerce, history or geography lessons, and pupils will learn firsthand through talks from aldermen and by visits to the council chambers.
I hope it'll give the young people a knowledge of local government and perhaps a better insight into how the council works, and perhaps even entice some of them into local government.
Tony Sullivan of Whitebridge High is one of the teachers who helped prepare the kit. He believes local government is a subject that has been neglected by the school system.
Well, first of all, I hope that they will get a knowledge of local government. I believe that in itself is a need. But the way the kit is being taught, it is a student inquiry. That is, the students themselves are going to find out the information, and therefore they will be learning skills such as communication, interviewing, research. Therefore they have to analyse the information they have and communicate that to their teachers.
The centre at Islington is one of 3 special education support units in the state. It is for children who are having difficulty learning, specifically with reading. They attend the centre for 3 hours a day for 10 weeks. As well as helping children here at the centre, the 2 specially trained teachers will also travel out to schools in Newcastle, Lake Macquarie and the Lower Hunter. The teachers will assess students who are having problems and devise an appropriate remedial program to help them.
Really to provide a centre for teachers to come to where they can learn the techniques for handling children with learning difficulties in their own classroom.
And why was one established in the Hunter region?
Oh, the demand is overwhelming up here. We've just been overwhelmed by the number of parents who've had children with learning difficulties and disabilities who feel that they've been looking for years for the necessary diagnosis and remedial help for their child.
The Minister congratulated the children on the work that adorned the walls.
And as I look around the walls there, you can see that Terry says that he loves reading in bed, and Nick says read about it.
From Islington, the Minister made a lightning visit to Merewether High and Newlambton Public School, where he was bombarded with questions on State Parliament. The 90 Year 5 students visited Parliament earlier this year. Unfortunately, it wasn't sitting. They weren't going to miss out again today, making the most of the Minister's short visit. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
Everyone be quiet.
At only 8 years old, Timothy Wilkinson has tackled the challenge of unravelling the mysteries of space.
I just wrote about what I thought the future in space would be, like there'd be towns in space because the Earth wouldn't be big enough soon.
Along with 600 other children, Timothy entered an essay competition organised by the National Committee on Space Engineering. Today, the avid Star Wars fan was awarded a finalist prize in the nationwide contest.
He has ideas that we'll be able to live in space. In the year 2500, we'll be having men going to Mars, things like this. He's also got ideas of planting and growing things in space without soil. And for an 8-year-old, they're very imaginative.
Despite the recognition of space engineering experts, the Year 4 student has his feet firmly planted on terra firma. Timothy says his extraterrestrial interests will remain confined to models and movies, with long-term plans centring on more earthly pursuits.
I used to think of being an engineer, but then I decided to be a doctor.
Confirmed that mining in Lake Macquarie will occur.
Well, it's up to the company. It's at the present moment bringing me a proposal, and there are 3 mines involved in this. That's 1,000 jobs. Now, you can't tell me that the people down there are saying that we can't accommodate one another to save 1,000 jobs for the whole of that area and at the same time give a good environment for home development.
So is that a yes? If someone comes up with a proposal to mine there that fits in with these recommendations,
Absolutely.
You're not going to stand in their way?
No. If they come up with fair proposals that give a balanced development, then we will certainly proceed.
Last year, 7,000 people signed a petition against Torres Colliery's mining of a seam which runs under the Landcom wood rising estate. They feared subsidence and damage to their homes. The Day report did call for major reforms for the Mine Subsidence Compensation Act. It also recommended ongoing research into stowage, a process to reduce subsidence and one which local residents suggested to the inquiry. Torres Colliery owners, Pacific Copper, have already prepared a set of proposals taking into account the Day report. But Bolton Point and Marmong Point Progress Association members are angry that they've been left in the dark until today.
I believe that the government is trying to appear as though they are taking some action and claim that the initiative was theirs in that action rather than taking that action because of the day report.
Mining approval for Lake Macquarie is seen as setting a precedent for future longwall extractions.
I think it is very significant, and I think the industry see it as being very significant because of their response to the day inquiry itself. There were some 129 submissions made to the day inquiry, most of those from coal sources. And they see it as setting a precedent for the industry, and so do we.
The caged birds and animals in Blackbutt Reserve have been at the centre of controversy for some time. Arguments have flown back and forth over whether the animals should remain in their concrete and wire homes. But the proposed management plan, drawn up by a Sydney-based consultant, recommends that all wildlife enclosures and aviaries be removed from the forest environment. This is necessary, the plan argues, to preserve the unique natural features of the bushland reserve. The consultant's verdict on the animal enclosures is echoed by the Reserve's Advisory Committee.
Blackbutt is doomed as a nature reserve if the animals continue to remain there.
The plan considers the future use of the reserve, making specific recommendations about the management of roads, waterways, pathways and entry points. Forest conditions will be encouraged to regenerate and introduced trees and plants will be removed.
By adopting this report, Blackbutt will be saved as a natural reserve, which is very unique to Newcastle.
Newcastle City Council has called for public submissions on the proposals, with the final report expected to go before Council in October.
Club this afternoon, everybody knew about it. With dozens of denim-clad road crew and 2 huge semi-trailer loads of gear stacked into the auditorium, the stage was set for the latest chapter in an Australian tour that has been little short of explosive, and has shocked even the seemingly unflappable star of the show.
Because we'd never stepped out of Australia other than New Zealand, I think. So to get really good response with the album and for people to say it's really fresh and, they like it and get good reviews, it's always nice.
Diesel's raw, gutsy performances, his explosive work on the guitar and his clean-cut good looks have made him an instant hit with rock fans of all ages and saddled him with the title of a heartthrob. A heartthrob who just today confirmed he is to be married to none other than the sister of rock great Jimmy Barnes. But Diesel isn't worried that move will lose him any fans, because he believes it's his music and not his looks that have taken him to the top.
It'll probably mean I'll have a ring on my left hand. That's probably about the most it's going to do to change my image.